Good afternoon. I am Dr. Johnson, Superintendent of the Bedford City School District, and we would like to welcome you to our very first Q&A with Dr. J, which is a platform that has been established by which we will cover various topics that will bring our 4 municipalities into our classrooms. We'll talk about how to truly connect our communities to our schools. And before we begin, I would like to introduce you to our panel. And throughout the series, as we cover various topics, we will have various guests from our schools, our communities. Some might be our parents, our students, our business partners. But first, I would like to introduce you to Ms. Jamie Cole.
Hi, I am the communications coordinator for the Bedford City School District, and I've been in that role under a year. This is my first year. Prior to that, I taught English, 8th grade English at Heskett Middle School. So glad to be here.
Mr. Marks.
Hi, I'm Luke Marks. I teach at the high school. I teach American Government, AP Gov, and a CCP class. I've been in the district, this is my 12th year. I also taught for 5 years down at Heskett Middle School. So do a lot of kind of community outreach with my student senate. So kind of this will be a good kind of opportunity to kind of demonstrate what we as a district are kind of doing and the local connections to history and such.
Hi, Mr. Toth.
My name is Zach Toth. I also teach social studies up at the high school. I've been a teacher in the district for the past 6 years, and then I'm also going on my 3rd year as the head football coach for Bedford High School.
Dr. Threet.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jatina Threet, Executive Director of School and Community Relations. Prior to that, I was the principal at Columbus Intermediate School. And then prior to that, I taught kindergarten and 3rd grade at Central Primary School. I'm happy to be here today.
And welcome again. As I share, we will be covering various topics as we cover our Q&A with Dr. J Sessions. I felt it was pretty fitting with today being Valentine's Day and that symbol being hearts, that we recognize that the first open heart surgery by Dr. Williams was an African American. And in addition to that, in February, I don't know if many people realize that Abraham Lincoln passed through Bedford on February 14th, actually, I believe it was 1861, on his way to give his inaugural speech in Washington. So with that being stated, we shared that our first topic would be the Underground Railroad and its impact and the things that have happened in our municipalities in relation to that topic. So when you think about that, I know we have a mural that was drawn by some local artists. Can you share maybe your thoughts just about, let's start out with that first piece with the significance of today and Dr. Williams and his impact and how you could maybe bring that into the classroom or the district in our discussions.
I think definitely with Dr. Williams and his contributions, I think it's a good thing to be able to tie into the classroom as an inspiration. Teaching in a predominantly African American district, that might be something that not too many people know, and especially the first open heart surgery being an African American male. I think that's big to relate to our kids, that there are a lot of contributions and things that they could do, and the representation aspect is very empowering and uplifting for our students, and seeing role models succeed.
Yeah, especially talking locally too, if the students see local connections, like with the mural. And if you haven't had a chance, you should check out the mural that's in the community. That's really cool. There's some news stories on it. But anytime you can kind of make it local, we know as teachers and education professionals, I mean, that's huge. You have to make learning and your student experiences relevant and authentic, and that's one of the best ways is to kind of make it authentic. To go field trips, have kids go on field trips, have them see, local connections and local contributions, and it instills like a sense of pride as well. I feel like, and especially, and that's important within our district. You want students to be proud of the district, and I think history and the whole culture behind, the civil rights movement and prior to the Civil War and the Underground Railroad, and it's all the local connection kind of instill kind of more of a sense of community, I feel like.
And when I did visit the Bedford Historical Society, the Bedford Township has so much to be proud of, especially in regards to the Underground Railroad. And there were three big stops. There were 3 homes that were stops on the Underground Railroad. And did you all know that John Brown sent 2 families from Kent to Bedford Township, which is really cool. So, and yeah.
I think I could speak to it from an elementary perspective of how we can bring that information into the elementary classroom, especially with the African American doctor who did the open heart surgery. A lot of times our elementary kids, they want to be doctors, they want to be nurses, they want to be a lawyer. Showing them people that look just like them, who have accomplished that goal, is great to bring into the classroom to inspire our young children to want to get to that point, to want to continue on and have those dreams and aspirations.
And to that point, Justice Turner is one of the board members. It's her mother, Danielle Birch. It's her mom, Justice Turner. And she's part of the Ohio Black Judges Association. And they're coming in on February 28th. A panel of 3 black female judges are coming in to kind of give a talk and an assembly to students. And it's like, to your point, I was on the phone with her and I kind of hit it off. We were talking on the phone, and she said there's 700 judges in Ohio and only 54 are African American. And I could be off on the exact statistic, but it's something in that range. So it's that representation matters, right? The kids, our students, want to be doctors and lawyers and eventually judges if law takes them that direction. And they can see, and having people that look like them is important. That aspect is, and if they can see, and she was inspiring to me because she was a teacher for 20 years. Went to night school to become a lawyer, got passed the bar exam, practiced law, and then became a judge. And she taught for 20 years, which is, imagine having a career like that where, going to school at night to become a lawyer and then becoming a judge and being an African American woman, was inspiring. I was talking to her on the phone for almost an hour, just picking her brain. It was really interesting. So it'd be a good opportunity for kids to see, that connection and that, and the importance of kind of that sense of community and that, they are able and can achieve these wonderful things in their lives.
So thinking about some of the things that you just shared, as educators in the Bedford City School District, if you were having that conversation with, a future teacher candidate, or a family that was thinking about moving into one of our municipalities, hearing what you've heard today, whether it's about the Underground Railroad, and a former president driving through, or some of the individuals that were brought here, what's something that you could say to them about why they should choose to live in one of our municipalities, or why should you choose to work in the Bedford City School District?
So the first thing that jumps to my mind right away is just the sense of community and pride, not only within the district and the schools, but being involved in extracurriculars along with teaching just makes me realize that there truly is a great sense of pride, and it's just Bedford's different. People are happy to be from Bedford in regards to whether it's sports or the school community. And then with the things that you guys brought up about our rich history, and that's something that you have people that are, definitely there's people out there that are proud of. I remember watching news interviews about the Historical Society and the artists and things like that, where bringing that to light, shining more light on that it's another thing to instill pride and just more like, hey, we're from Bedford. This is really a good place to be and learn.
And as educators, that's one of our important roles, right? Is to kind of show students aren't going to go out and find a mural to go look at, right? We as educators kind of have to be the guiding hand that shows them to that pride and that history, because I think we have to see that, especially, being a white male in a predominantly African American district, you have to recognize kind of the importance of, local cultural pride and cultural connections, and kind of be that conduit to where students can experience that and learn about the rich history of the local communities, for sure.
And just to piggyback off your comment about the mural, when it first came out, it was like a national story. It's got prominent historical figures that have played a major role in U.S. history and Black history, and with direct ties to Bedford, where you see these people and you learn about them in history books, such as John Brown and Harriet Tubman and things like that.
Jamie, can
people
you,
like that.
where is that mural exactly? Because I watched the news story and stuff. And
It is in it's in downtown, what is called downtown Bedford
okay,
now.
yeah.
Yep, it's in downtown Bedford. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think more importantly too is for someone who is looking to move into our communities to know that that rich history is embedded in our schools. Like, we teach that. We want our students to know about the communities in which they live in and the great people that come from our communities. We want them to know that. And so we strive to make sure that our kids know and learn about the rich history that our communities have.
And go ahead, Doctor.
No, go ahead.
So, and then just to kind of what you're saying, every year when the Student Senate goes to the cemetery, Bedford Cemetery on Memorial Day, the Friday before Memorial Day, and they kind of, again, they see that connection to the history about people that have served. And I mean, there's a couple of graves there that are, over 150 years old. And Bedford High School students have been doing that since the 60s, placing flags at graves. So it's just continuing these traditions, these kind of things that kind of tie us together culturally and instill that pride in the students is important.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about, you talked about that cultural piece and that pride based upon the fact of how we're attempting to bring that and teach that within the classrooms. You talked about our students being involved. When I think even about our taglines, when we talk about pride, tradition, achievement. Just here today, the partnership. I do want to take the opportunity to thank the congregation of Mount Zion of Oakwood for even allowing us shoot this episode here today. But your partnerships, we talk about the Historical Society, we have a public library and the significance of that. Later, and I think one of the other sessions, we'll talk about the significance of the Rome Church. And so how are you bringing that into the classroom? What are some partnerships within the community and some other things that you can make those true connections with our students so that they too begin to continue to pass along these rich traditions, this communication of information about the historical impact?
Well, I was going to say that just last year I took a class called Write Where You Are, WRITE, and it talked about turning your community into like the museum where children explore, even to the point where if you want to do a math lesson, you go to your neighborhood grocery store and purchase things, and you do a mini addition and subtraction lesson for the younger students. So that is a big push with turning a community into like a living museum.
Yeah.
So that's
And
huge.
one thing I've always liked about Bedford since I've been here is if you request a field trip, you're going to get the bus, and you're going to have the resources to do it. So as a teacher, it's really nice because you're only kind of bound by your own creativity and how you kind of use that. So, and that's been really nice. So, in talking to you, Jamie, too, to be honest, I didn't realize kind of how many local connections there were historically to Underground Railroad and to other things. So just talking to you, I mean, that kind of spurs in a lot of ideas for me to kind of make some more authentic opportunities through field trips and different more authentic experiences students can have. Yeah.
And then I was thinking, like you just said, I think the big thing is just educating our students and letting them know what's out there, what's in the community. And the big thing is, going back to what you two just talked about, is we as teachers need to be educated on the rich history. And one thing that just sticks out in me is when I first got hired here, we had our 2 to 3 days of new employees. I thought it was awesome. We took a bus trip around the 4 communities. And you have, I just don't think that happens elsewhere, where not a lot of people truly buy in and realize where they teach and what special things the entire district has to offer, as we talked about, where there are 4 communities that, although we go to the same school, there's 4 communities that come from different backgrounds and different walks of life that add a difference to just, so the big thing would be being educated of what's in the community and our partnerships and things like that, and then just passing that information along to your students, and then combining it with the creativity and field trips and more hands-on
Right.
type of learning.
And it really makes me think, you know how in the States, you know, we look at America as like a melting pot. And I mean, when you really think of the 4 communities, like they are 4 separate communities that, and you know, like we are the district, we're that center point, that, yeah, we're the pot. So it's kind of, when you think of it, you know, as I'm thinking of it now, like that's really extra special about this district, that we blend so well together.
And I think I can speak to, and I want to speak to this because it was just recent, but how we have our students as Rotarians. Like we attend Rotary and we bring our students in and they become Rotarians. And then they get that opportunity to venture out and see the rich history that Bedford has to offer, such as yesterday when we sent some high schoolers who are, I'm going to call them Rotarians, because that's what they are now, but they actually went to the Bedford Historical Society on yesterday to tour that venue. And then they can come back and talk about it to their classmates and encourage their classmates to go out and, you know, explore the history that Bedford has to offer. So wanted to bring that one up.
I think one of the things that I realized, you know, this being my 7th year in the district, in my 2nd year as superintendent, is, as you talked about, Jamie, that close connection with our 4 municipalities. And for example, I think earlier this week on Monday, we had a conversation, and I also want to thank from the city of Bedford, Mike Malice. We had Councilwoman Enid Thomas from Bedford Heights. We had Councilman Mr. Smith from Bedford, and Councilwoman Candace Williams from Oakwood. And just that conversation, and then willing to be visible in the district. We've had Councilman Whedon from Walton Hills, whether we're going to council meetings or they're coming to us, just that partnership. I think last summer, the first Juneteenth celebration was a collaborative event put together, and it's just been so interesting and amazing to see that. You feel that, like wherever I've gone, when you meet people from Bedford, like you hear that, you sense that. I think we've talked about the number of former Bearcats coming back and teaching in the district, regardless of the position or role that they serve, in that dedication. So how do you discuss that with your colleagues, with students as well?
So it reminded me of last year I took a group of students to the Bedford Heights Town Hall, like City Hall, and they met the mayor. And he was just, I mean, for students to have an authentic experience like that, you can learn about local government and federalism and all that, and not really relevant. But when you have, and then the mayor was very polite. He served us lunch, and they sat in on like a cabinet meeting, they called it. So students got to see like real local government action. And I'm like, this is what politicians are, very charismatic, right? So, and he's very and that's how communities should be. You should be connected to your representatives and your politicians, and there should be a sense of community. He did a very good job at creating that. I mean, there is any interaction I've had with local government officials in the communities. I mean, it's been wonderful. I mean, there is like a sense of, partnership and community between the schools and the local governments, for sure.
Like almost like service.
Yeah.
You know, like how
and that's what
really
it is,
should
right?
be,
Yeah.
where you don't feel as if your elected officials are,
Right.
here.
No, they're with you.
Here.
Exactly. Yeah. And that experience was really cool for students to see, and me too, to get that sense that it's a government where the people are the government, and that it's more, you can see it kind of more in a more authentic way. Right. He's talking to the police chief and the Department of Sanitation guy, and all the intricacies of running a local community, and just allowing kids to sit down and just observe was really cool.
I definitely think on the day-to-day basis, like your everyday, education is strongly built on relationships. And I feel like our students, they need to feel that relationship with their teacher, but just know that their teacher takes a great pride in the school, in the district, and in the community. I think that's a big thing where if you don't have those relationships, or if you're really not all in, and I'm trying to teach about the history of Bedford, or I'm trying to say this and this, and if I don't, one, know it, or if they don't feel like I'm truly passionate, or if I'm just doing this to check boxes, they'll check out. So the big thing is just the overall buy-in from the staff and teachers and community. I mean, I truly, and I don't just say this, I think there's a big buy-in from, we use the kind of the term stakeholders. I think the various aspects of the community and district, there's a tremendous buy-in from a lot of people, which makes it more authentic and makes it easier to build those connections and those relationships and tie in our history.
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, I totally.
It kind of goes back to the old adage, you know, students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
And I mean, that for me, that was kind of the biggest thing in learning as a teacher, because you can have all like the pedagogy knowledge and all the content knowledge, but if what really matters is the kids know that you care about them, right? So one of the best ways to show that you care, not only be passionate about what you're teaching, but give them authentic experience, show your passion, allow them to be passionate about what you're passionate about. You know,
And then I can, like, last Friday was literally my best day, I think, teaching here at the district. And
Nice.
So
you
I'll
got
be
out
honest,
early or something?
No, say no.
No, never out early, obviously. But I had a teacher, so I didn't really do much for Black history ever in my entire career. My thought was, I was kind of, not that I was closed off to the fact, but to me, Black history is American history, that it needs to be taught throughout the year, that I don't want to confine it to a box of just February and Black history. But with that mindset, I think it just needs to be there. It needs to be emphasized more in February. So I was so pushed by a coworker, Miss Manningham Ford down at Columbus Intermediate. I'm very close with her, and she said, "Toth, your students like you. You need to do something for Black History Month." And I kind of put it off. I was like, I'll do something. So I came up with the help of her as I do Black History Fridays, and with how it went last Friday, I had students who I've seen in the past, being there for seeing them as freshmen, now as juniors or whatever. I have students who have never spoken in class who I couldn't get to stop talking. Really? And it was just a candid conversation. It was like, hey guys, we're gonna talk. What does Black history mean to you? What are your thoughts about Black History Month? What are your thoughts about the district's things? Do you think we're doing this to check boxes? Do you think and we just had candid conversations.
I was in the hallway in Hall
awesome.
Duty when he was doing it, and I was just kind of listening in. It was really cool. It was like, and heard a lot of different kids talking. It was. I was going to ask you about that. So.
Yeah. So then my plan is I'm going to get with her more. Mr. Reed, one of our social workers, came in and joined the conversation. Just not even planned. Just saw we were doing this. So kind of to go off my original, how I don't think Black history is confined to a month of February. My plan is I'll be able to make it fit in. Maybe it might not be the entire class, but I would love to do. And my plan is kind of Black History Fridays for the rest of the year, and then hopefully it carries on throughout my career. Because I told the students, if we have conversation like this every Friday, I don't mind missing some of that content and those standards that we need to know, because this is way more important to talk and to just converse about things around us, history, current time. So like I said, I'm not just saying that. It was, I texted her, I called my mom after. I said, Mom, like this is my favorite day of teaching in the past 6 years. It was truly awesome.
So just thinking about that, you talked about, we had like standards, and there's so much packed into public education. I think I just saw a recent House bill or Senate bill even put even more into what you're supposed to teach in the social studies and government department without taking things off the plate. But how are you setting up that environment to ensure that it is okay? You talked about relationships and the importance of us knowing who we are, where we come from, in order to move forward. How are you creating that time, that opportunity, that safe space within the classroom?
I think that, so when I was teaching, I taught Frederick Douglass for, probably 16 years. And that would be some of the most engaging conversation. So what I would often do is, the things that are going on in the text, I would relate it to things that are currently going on, and that was, I'm telling you, I had students, even just last year, one of my students, he didn't think that we overheard him, but he was like, man, I love this book. Dad, I love this book. Like, they would be, all right, Miss Cole, come on, hurry up, let's go, let's start reading, right? And
Quit talking, Miss Cole.
they would definitely, let's get back to reading. But you connected to the things that are currently going on. And, of course, Frederick Douglass is a book about slavery. And unfortunately, you can relate a lot of things that are going on in the news to some of the, I'm losing my word, yeah.
I think it's very important that in the field of teaching, and I've been out of the classroom for a while, but you have to make things relatable.
Right.
Because things that happened years and years ago, those students can't relate to. But when you could bring the two together and merge the two together to get them, to help them understand that, unfortunately, what happened back then, a lot has changed, but a lot hasn't changed. It really gets them to think, do that critical thinking. So I think the relatability, the things that you're speaking about, is very, very important, because, students nowadays can't really relate to what happened. Well, they can relate to some things, but there are some things that they can't relate to because they can't visualize it. But when you can compare it and merge what's happening today in our world with things that happened back in the 60s and back in the 50s, I think you get their attention.
Yeah. And remind them also, I know I would often remind them, you was a lot of people walking around here born in the 50s. You call them
It's
grandma.
very close, right?
Granted, so.
They're in your household,
two,
right?
Exactly.
I'm sure Mr. Toth too can attest to this for teaching history too, especially predominantly African American student body. It's, oftentimes history, it's purely through the lens of victimhood, right? It's always kind of an emphasis on, the brutality. And sometimes it's good to to tell students and teach things that instill pride in a sense of more than just purely through the lens of the brutality of it.
Right.
So you have to give, because when students go through school and they learn Black history, what is almost always the topic? It's slavery or it's the Middle Passage.
Right.
Rarely it's the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Well, no, the history of it is much deeper than that, right? Like even today, during my CCP US history class, and I try because they're so inundated with American history, with it always being this kind of, through the lens of it's victim, right? And it is victimhood, but when it's only taught that, when that's the only thing students hear in lessons, it becomes it gets not old to them, but it's like, all right, we get it. Like, you want to also teach things that can instill pride. So a lot of people don't realize right after the Civil War, you had at the states in the South throughout the country, you had African Americans who were being elected to state legislatures. You had the first Black senator, the first Black members of the House of Representatives. It was this period of like 10 years in the 1870s when it's thriving. I mean, it was a time of like great hope. Like you had, it's almost like a time period of what could have been. It's a kind of tragic what ends up happening. So in my class this morning, I showed like a little video clip. Henry Louis Gates did a really great PBS series on Reconstruction era, and he talks about, and it talks about the pride and the hope that was at this time period. It's not just purely through a negative stance. There are things to take pride in. African Americans fought for their freedom. They weren't freed by Abraham Lincoln and the white man. They fought for it, right? A 500 years, still a struggle that continues today, and they should take pride in that. And it wasn't their freedom and their liberty was not gifted to them. They fought for it, and that's important to remember.
And this has to be balanced.
Yeah, and I think
there's a balance, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that for me, even the opening today, it was important for me, even as we start this session, to talk about the pride and the triumph. Yes. Because I will tell you often, I've heard even from raising two African American boys, often what they cannot do. but we are inventors. We have triumphed. And so I think even when I hear your students talk about the two of you, I often hear about those relationships. And you do a lot outside of the classroom also to make those connections. One of the things I think Dr. Threet and I both, for you, Mr. Toth, I've seen you making that connection to community even with your team. That we can appreciate when we call upon you and you talk about true service. So can you talk about some of the things in terms of instilling that pride and making that, even that, closing that, that gender gap through your team that you've done?
Mm-hmm. So the big thing, when I took over the football program, I wanted to, like I say, create a true sense of community. I think football is and sports in general is a great way to have the community rally behind the district. And so we've volunteered down at the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. We've volunteered at, we do the Fellowship Church of God Food Bank. You mentioned the Rotarians, we volunteer at the rib burn-off. So a couple of things we get from that. One, my student athletes actually are giving back to the community, and in return they see how much, not only are they appreciated for their service, but kind of like what we talked about earlier, like that pride that's in Bedford. People see them at the rib burn-off, like, hey, I graduated in '85. I played for the Bearcats. Good luck this season. I'll catch a couple games. And we have a great group of students. Not just student athletes. The kids at Bedford are great kids, and they often get a bad rap or things that you hear out there. But I can tell you that Bedford kids are great kids.
I agree,
and
110%. And I've taught several different districts, and there's a reason why I've stayed in Bedford for so long, and it's the students are, I mean, they're wonderful kids. The families are great. I mean,
all right. One example of that is you kind of mentioned that gender gap. We had, and she's coming back next year. We had a female kicker on our football team, and she, Anna, yeah, seriously, I'll clap that up for a bunch of wins that she helped us get. So Anna was a big part to our success on the football field. But from a coaching standpoint, it was more about how we had, like, the most likes we've ever got on our Bedford football Instagram page was one of Anna's kicks or Anna's stories. And then the news came out and the news did a story. And when that spotlight is on someone, there's two things that can happen. One's negative and one's positive. Kids could be resentful, kids could be upset, like, all she does is kick, she's a girl on the team, why not cover me? But the way that our young men rallied behind her, the way that the school community rallied behind her, the teachers and everything, I mean, like, I'm getting goosebumps right now talking to it. It was, I posted on Facebook, I had family members reaching out to me, people throughout the country. I have family in Columbus, family in Chicago, like throughout, like, hey, like you mentioned, smashing that gender gap and that gender barrier, but just circling back to the way that our young men and women at Bedford truly, I feel like there's pride within the students, and them giving back and connecting to the community bridges that gap a little bit in regards to how to do it, because fortunately enough, kids can volunteer on the weekends when they play sports, and I know they can do that with education, but that's kind of an expectation when sports, like, you're going to give up some of your weekends, and it's not pulling teeth to get kids to volunteer. Yeah. It's, coach, can I come? Coach, can I come? Hey, I only need 10 guys. I have 20 guys. It's like I said, Bedford kids, man, they really, this is home, and yeah. I love our kids. And
I think just reminds me, anytime I take students on field trips too, it's like, you would imagine it's like nerve-wracking. It's not. Like, kids, when Bedford students get out of the high school and they go into public areas, they're like wonderful. It's unbelievable. Like, even when I would take them to Washington, D.C., we would take over 100 kids to D.C. I mean, never once did I have any major issues. Kids were very respectful. I mean, and that is, again, one thing I take pride in working here is, like, I mean, when the kids are outside of the district, outside of the school buildings, they represent Bedford School District well. As a generalization, obviously there's certain.
Right. But, yeah. When Heskett just visited the Historical Society, and I went up there just to snap a few pictures, nothing but compliments. Yeah. Nothing but compliments. They were very, very pleased with, and the children were so engaged, and and what, they were so engaged in everything that was there. So
I will say, unfortunately, that's sometimes one of the things that makes me sad is the surprise.
Wow, they're so good. Right.
Just being a minority, I've been in situations where individuals say, wow, you speak clearly. Your children behave nicely. And I'll be honest, I'm not surprised because of who we are as a community, of richness, of greatness. When I hear about the historical platform that has been established through Black history, I'm not surprised. And so that's what I would say to our 4 municipalities, or anybody that decides to come to Bedford or move into our area. Going back to what you said, it's not about that every now and then news clip. It's about what we see day in and day out in regards to our families, pre-K through 12. So as we close out this session, what's one thing that you would also like to share, or for our viewers to remember and encourage them to watch out for the next one? Mr. Toth?
I'm going to end this like I end, get a little coach in me, how I end every practice, and this is the honest to God truth. I tell the kids that I love them, and that there is no better place to be than Bedford High School in the Bedford City School District. I end it with my youth programs. I end it with practice every day, because not are we trying to fake it. I truly believe it. I've never once looked for another teaching job. There's no place I'd rather be. That truly there's no better place than Bedford. And I just hope that people in the community and people that have other thoughts truly just kind of get that, do a little research, and kind of just put yourself out there, and there's no better place to be.
Thank you. And as I shared earlier, this is just our very first Q&A with Dr. J. This is not the last, so we will continue to venture out into one of our 4 municipalities with another amazing landmark. So please watch out for that next episode. Thank you.